We here at Mayhem Media
understand the trials and tribulations of life.
No matter how hard life can get.
Suicide is never the answer.
There's more assistance available today than ever before.
If you or a loved one are suffering from suicidal thoughts, please don't try and take it on alone.
Call or text 988 if you live in the U.S.
Or if you're in Great Britain, call 116123 or text 85258.
The world is a better place with you in it.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Mayhemtainment again for the second part of my doubleheader this afternoon. Unfortunately, my guest, JediTheorist, is not able to make it. He had car trouble and is currently dealing with that, so it's unfortunate, but we will have to carry on without him. I'm sure he will be back next week, so look for us again next week. Of course, we'll be back with the next episode, but for this one, we are talking about House of the Dragon, Episode 5, Unbowed and Unbent, which is a referring to the Martells family, their motto, I guess their family motto, Unbowed, Unbent, Unbroken, is what the Martells house saying is. So in this episode, we had a bunch of build up, a bunch of action, some fights, and I figured we were gonna have a couple episodes of the fallout from that, and not just more action, but armies moving, Rhaenyra learning how to govern, King's Landing. The Hightower host is, or Ormond Hightower and his Hightower host are in a small town, which has real no effect in the Seven Kingdoms, but because Rhaenyra, they're suspecting Rhaenyra won't use the dragons to burn them out, which is probably a safe place for Rhaenyra not to do that. Destroying your own people and your own cities is not going to win you more loyalty. So Rhaenyra's learning how, and she's dealing with problems within the city as well. She's got her eyes on Vhagar, and there's so much happening within the city, and she's worried about so much other stuff outside of the city. And that's what I loved about the Daemon and Rhaenyra and their dynamic in this episode. Is Daemon's trying to tell her, listen, of course you're the queen. Of course there's going to be people who don't want you to be queen. There's no ruler that's ever been really unchallenged. Even Aegon the Conqueror, once we see that movie, when it actually gets made and released, we're not going to, it's not going to be all peaceful. There's always going to be people plotting against you. That's what it means to rule. Daemon tries to tell her this in the episode when they're sitting and talking. They're talking in Valyrian in the Sept, and she's still concerned about the Sept won't recognize her or acknowledge her. And Daemon's trying to say to her, that doesn't. You're worried about stuff that you shouldn't be worried about, stuff that doesn't matter. Daemon's worried about what's in front of him, what's in the city, and everybody killing the gold cloaks. That's what his main concern is. Now, he's probably concerned about that, not just for the sake of the city and keeping it together, but they're his gold cloaks. It's the army he built, or at least the vast majority of it. So an attack on them I guarantee you, he sees it as an attack on him. Daemon, who is the king consort and a dragon rider, then proceeds to dress as a king's guard and head out into the city so that he can investigate and hopefully be treated, or maybe they will come and attack him and he can learn something. But he goes out as a gold cloak. Of course, we know the end of the episode is all of his gold cloaks sitting. It says a feast for traitors. and his Lord Commander of the City Watch is there, probably along with many other officers. I think there's 8 or 9 of them there, and that's how the episode ends. So clearly, that's not going to be over. We're going to be dealing with more of that tonight in tonight's House of the Dragon episode, I would imagine. Daemon is also, that's what Daemon's trying to say. Listen, you need to worry about some of these things in front of us, especially the City Watch, because we haven't paid them. If we don't protect them or investigate what's happening to them, then they could just start quitting. We could lose their ranks. And I think Daemon's right in that. Rhaenyra is trying to manage, but she's trying to manage everything at once. And it's because she has a small council, a new small council, who she doesn't trust because she doesn't know them. And she doesn't trust her old small council because they plotted to keep her inside when Jace was killed. So she doesn't trust anybody. And she's not even sure if she can still trust Daemon, as we find out from that conversation. She even says, do I find myself back on Dragonstone where I have to compete with your voice? And he's trying to say, listen, you need to start putting, what he's trying to say is, listen, start delegating. Put people in charge of this or that, and then trust them to do the job. Now, no doubt that Daemon is definitely the person she can trust the most, especially when it comes to anything with the war or the safety of the city. He's in. He's already pleaded, he's already dedicated himself to her when she came to see him at Harrenhal. So, and we know from his visions that he buys in, he believes, but he still was trying to help her see the right path forward. And she still cannot see it. She's concerned with everything else but what's right in front of her and just taking the next steps. She's still worried about the High Septon. She's worried about Vagar. She's worried about Ormond Hightower's host locked in the city. And it's like, you have the capital, you have kingdoms declared for you. All that's left is the Hightower hosts, the Ormond Hightower host, and Sir Criston Cole and Alicent's brother, the other Hightower. They're still got their army. They're marching out there too, but they're trying to keep up with the Northmen. And we find out in this episode that they left caltrops behind and they lost a huge amount of their cavalry. So Criston Cole and his army, so what's left of it, lost a huge amount of their horses from the caltrops in the forest. Smart move by the Northmen, knowing that they were being followed and then actually doing something about it to slow them down. We also find out towards the end of the episode, when they reached the river, that the Northmen crossed not the bridge of this river, but it was a makeshift. It was a wooden bridge. They crossed it. They likely built it and then burnt it. And if it was an existing bridge, they still burnt it after they crossed, knowing that they were being followed. That way they couldn't follow across the river. What will Criston Cole do? I think Criston Cole will likely send his people into the river to try and swim across, where he'll lose more than half, and he'll barely have a couple of squads left, and not really an army. Not really sure what Criston Cole's end game is. He wants to die. He's ready to die, especially because he thinks Alicent is captured. He'll likely never be with her again. And Criston Cole's, I'm sorry, I wasn't a super fan of him at the beginning, and I'm definitely less of a fan of him now. He was so struck with the females. He was that way with Rhaenyra, and now he's that way with Alicent. It's like, dude, you're a member of the Kingsguard. You shouldn't even be screwing anybody, and you're hung up on queens, and it's just ridiculous. So now he knows he's ready to die, because he's likely not going to ever get to be with her again. So he's starting to accept that more and more. Plus, clearly, we know he's tried twice to off himself and didn't. So he's been ready to die for some time. I think he's leading the rest of those men and the other Hightower and the other Hightower just to their doom. I think they're following just a madman. He said it in a previous episode. He said, "Let us become wraiths and operate in the shadows and strike in darkness." And eventually they're going to be dwindled enough that that's literally all they will be able to do. But that's also not really what you do with an army. You can't operate in the shadows. You can't operate in small groups with an army. If you got a couple hundred men, it takes time to march. It takes time. You got to hunt. You got to have food. Can't really do what he wants to do with a large number anyway. That's why I think also that will lead to him just throwing his men in the river and saying, cross if you can make it. And if you can't, then you've pledged you've given your life in service to Aegon or Aemond, Team Green. So That's what I think. I think he's looking to have the numbers dwindled anyway. They'll be easier to control, and you'll have some of the hardest men left over. So Vagar and Aemon. Let's talk about Aemon. We know Vagar's out there kind of doing his own thing at the moment. Whether that's because Aemon is injured, we don't know what goes through the mind of a dragon, but Aemon is recovering after getting stabbed in Harrenhal, and of course, Alice Rivers is tending to him. We know that Aemon has a sort of mommy complex based on his relationship with the working girl in King's Landing, and so we know he kind of has a little bit of that fetish, and Alice Rivers is definitely playing right into that. And just as I said earlier this season, Daemon scorning her the way he did and simply refusing. If he had just said, well, we can talk to the queen, we'll discuss with the queen, we'll see what she has to say about it. If he would have even been willing to hear it, then I think that would have kept her loyalty. But her just scorning, or Daemon just scorning her, of course she's going to be plotting to get what she wants. And she's already doing that with Aemon. So her and Aemon are already getting a relationship. She's taking care of him. She's kind of filling in that mommy complex that he has. He's going to be loyal to her. And I could see him just giving the castle to her just because he's so lacking allies at the moment. And that's why I said huge mistake by Daemon scorning her and not at least hearing her out, not at least taking it to the queen to appease her, even if he knew the answer was going to be no. And the answer would have likely been no, but I think she'd have been more loyal if Daemon would have been willing to take it to the queen to have a conversation about it and not just be like, no, of course you're not getting this castle. What are you, crazy? I think that immediately turned her off and sent her right into, she was going to start plotting immediately how to switch sides. She's in it for herself. She's not in it for the prophecy. She's not in it for anything else, I believe. She just uses it to her advantage. Alice Rivers is a dangerous character in House of the Dragon, and turning out to be a wild card. I'll have to look her up in the books and see what it says about her within the books and see if she plays a major role. I'm honestly not sure about that, so I will check into that ahead of the next episode, which hopefully Jedi Theorist will be able to join me for. I think these episodes are better as a conversation than me just kind of talking to the camera. So Aemond is in Harrenhal. Vagar is kind of just doing whatever he wants right now because Aemond is not in a position to ride him or even command him or anything at this point. Aemond's got to heal. And I think we're going to see more of that, Aemond and Alice Rivers, in tonight's episode. I think we'll see their story advance a little more as well and see what happens there. In terms of anything else, I really don't know. The Northmen and the Riverland army are still marching. So they're still on the board. The Ormond Hightower is in Tumbleton. They're dug in at Tumbleton as protection, using the regular people as protection. And of course, Sir Criston Cole's clutch of men is dwindling, and they've just lost their horses, and they're pretty much stretched. Honestly, what they should do is they should regroup in Tumbleton with the other Hightower host, strengthen numbers. Especially at this point. But like I said, Criston Cole's not looking for the long run here. He's looking to just do whatever he can do until he's finished. So he's just going to keep pushing forward. I expect that Hightower army to decrease drastically if they try and cross the river tonight. Let me think. Anything else? Oh, there was a scene between Lord Corliss's granddaughter and his bastard son, and they kind of have a talk. Is it a family talk? I don't know. To me, it didn't strike me as a family talk. It looked more like a romantic, like those two were potentially maybe developing something. So maybe we'll see those two get together at some point during this as well. They've been flying together. They've been spending time together. They're bonding. Yeah, they are related. He is the bastard son, and she's his granddaughter. We know that the Targaryens and the Valerians don't have a problem with that necessarily. So, well, Targaryens definitely don't have a problem with that. Valerians clearly don't have a problem with it, or they wouldn't have wed the granddaughters initially to Rhaenyra's sons. So, and remember now, they are also Daemon's daughters. Okay, they're Lord Corliss's granddaughters, but they're Daemon's daughters. All right, so it's a crazy family tree to be sure. So Daemon's daughters, or at least one of them, could be getting with Lord Corliss's bastard son. They're also the same, her being Lord Corliss's granddaughter. So could we see that potentially? Maybe we'll see some more of that. The other dragon riders, we know that they've been dispatched to keep an eye on Tumbleton. So I think we'll see something there. I think we're going to see one or both of those guys, Ulf and I'm totally drawing a blank on the other one. He's definitely more noble, more honorable. But those two are going to do something for sure. I think they're not just going to sit back and watch. They're going to get involved. That's going to be a huge thing. And I think that might come to fruition in tonight's episode as well. If you're tuning in, leave a comment if there's anything you'd like to discuss or my thoughts on it, or even if you're just watching this on the reshow, please leave a comment. We can talk about it in the next episode. I'm trying to think of anything else. The cats. There's a scene, the cats. They're releasing the cats into the castle to deal with all the rats. What I wanted to tie in here is that in Game of Thrones, Arya Stark chases the cats. Her instructor, her sword fighting instructor, instructs her to chase to catch cats. We can assume that these cats are the descendants of the cats that are being released into the castle right now to prevent the rat problem. And I think that's interesting. I think that's a cool little tidbit that they put in there. I never even thought about the fact that at the beginning of this show, they're having rat problems within the castle, but in Game of Thrones, they don't have any rat problems in the castle because there are so many wild cats just loose in the castle. Clearly from when Rhaenyra released them to deal with the rat problem. But it's such a great continuity there between it, and we don't get to see as much as we want because the creators of the original Game of Thrones series went way off the books, and After the Dragon is also way off the books. So I do like to see some continuity between the two series because we've already seen enough in continuity between the two, especially with the dragons not being able to cross the wall, but in Game of Thrones, clearly they do. So there's already been plenty of things that don't make sense from one series to this one, or from this series to Game of Thrones, but I do like the small stuff. That's how you can still keep people hooked on it, I think, is with the small stuff as well. So I kind of like that. I don't think there was anything else that I wanted to talk about. I think that was pretty much everything I wanted to cover. Like I said, I wish JediTheorist would have been able to make this. He always brings great topics and great discussion to these episodes. So I'm hoping we'll see him. I mean, I'm sure he'll be back next week, barring any car problems or health problems, of course. You can't stop life or prevent life from doing it. So I'm going to get ready to close out. Just a short episode. They're always shorter when I'm by myself. Please leave a comment. I'm got the apparel on. Check out the storefront, bonfire.com/store/mayhem media shop. Pick up some apparel. Shout out Marcus Fredrickson, who plays us in and out of every episode on Mayhem Media. He does all the music. Please go check his music out as well. We miss him very much. ReverbNation.com/Marcus Fredrickson. Share out your favorite song and tag us in it. Until next week, we'll be back for After the Dragon. And then we have other episodes that'll be coming up in early to mid-August as well. Stay tuned to our social media for updates and on the dates and times of those episodes. We already got 3 or 4 on the calendar, so August is going to be another big month for us. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. I am your host, the bad guy, JD, and that's the end.